So I think obviously here was like, because we went from the open qualifiers all the way to here, so it was obviously a long road. So we made sure that like we got here, and first things first, we needed to actually qualify for the major, and we did that. And then it was kind of like once we got to the actual major challenger stage, was to make sure that we can set the goals like to get to the legend stage. That was our actual goal, and then anything after that was a plus. So I think now it's kind of like we've done it, but it's also we know where we're at. Like, I think we made playoffs, and we also didn't play that good of Counter-Strike at this event. So I think we all know our potential and know that once we go into this Elisa tournament, that we're obviously could be seen as like one of the top teams there.
Add some fun to your space with Xtrfy, designed in Sweden with focus on quality products built on experience. You're looking at Project 4, their 4th generation of products with super cool colorways to stand out, with matching sets to satisfy with a solid B4 bungee, lightweight ergonomic M4 mouse, the K4 keyboard is fantastic, all of which are performance focused, and finish it off with colorful GP4 mouse mats that are bold in design and smooth on the surface. The retro theme in particular has got the feels. Complete your setup with Xtrfy. No regrets guaranteed.
Finally, I found what I was looking for. Now that my search is over, it's gonna be a tough choice. But fortunately, no need to choose. When you can just have them all. Buy and sell skins on Bitskins.com.
Bet. Your bet. Your game.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Counter-Strike fans around the globe, welcome back to another episode of HLTV Confirmed, live and direct from Rio, here for the IEM Rio Major. Quick shout out to the sponsors. Look at the bar, not used. That's true, it isn't being used right now. Xtrfy, Bitskins, and N1Bet. Remember to gamble responsibly. All right, let's get straight into the show. We got Prof, and today we are joined by King mezii, the pride of the United Kingdom. He's going to take over as the king of the country, I believe. Charles will be promoting you into his role.
Yeah, I'm up next.
Yep, so that's great. Who are the other two? Harry and that fucking William guy?
Yeah.
Yep, so you're going to pop straight up.
Yeah.
And Harry and Hugo will be his court jesters.
Oh, that's nice.
I do believe. So he's going to have quite the repertoire of individuals to back him up. And of course, FASHR, the Smasher, Travis Scott's favorite Counter-Strike player. You know, how have you been hiding this relationship with Travis Scott for all these years?
Yeah, I don't know. He's not that popular, so I was like, doesn't really matter, right?
Fair enough. Yeah, it makes sense. I wouldn't be talking about him either. No. Right? I wouldn't be mentioning him either. Now, I got a quick question out the gates here for you, mezii. Were you happy the way that we berated the Fnatic team at the start of the year, so now you have a roster that's actually good?
I mean, it was fair. So, I mean, I think a lot of people didn't enjoy the team we had at the start and didn't see the potential, but I think now we're kind of...
Now you guys are fucking sick.
We're on to something at least.
Yeah.
Feels good that we're on the right path. It's been, at least for me, a bit... Never got a roster that's kind of...
You had like 2 years of just... Year and a half of just jumping between teams. It's like, oh, look at him. He's he's the best player on this team. He's going to go to this better team. It's going to be better. Haha, joke's on you. It's not. Go to another team. Oh, I'm on cloud 9. This is going to be amazing. Joke's on you. It's not. So it was a kind of a journey.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it's been good that we can finally get somewhere that I can actually start pushing on, getting to my first major, making playoffs, which is always good, but...
Always good. Your first major, mate. This fucking sick.
I don't know. I had a dream last night we actually won it. It felt so real as well. So, I don't know.
It's getting into your head.
Yeah, it's going way too far now. I need to be brought back down to earth. But
how did it feel when you woke up and realized it wasn't real?
I mean, the worst thing was I woke up, knew it wasn't real, went back to sleep, had the same dream again, and it felt even worse. So I don't know.
Shit, man.
I'm sorry.
Look, you get the medal in the game now. That's the one thing I always wanted as a player. Next to my name, the little medal that says I was in the playoffs. That right there, when we didn't have a whole lot, right? We had some stickers, team stickers, but that right there was the thing that I fucking geeked out hardcore on. And maybe I'm over. Is it still a big deal? Do you guys care about that?
I think it's nice, right?
It's nice until you turn up on the 7 and you've got Crims with his 2-1. So
at least you got something to match him with now, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't want to be that team that you turn onto Prac server and you just all cringe with all the... Everyone's got the same quarterfinalist ones on, but I think it's nice to at least have something there for your first one, like first major.
Yeah, yeah. There's so many players, mate, who played a lot of majors and didn't get anywhere near the playoffs, right? So the fact that you guys on the first debut of this roster at a major are able to do so, it's pretty cool. And I think when we look at the complexion of your team, right, obviously FASHR in the mix here, you're in the ecstatic days, everyone looking at you going, okay, this guy's got a little bit of something. You had Nikodos, you got Roy, and obviously you kept Crims as the backbone, right? This team, when you look at the firepower across it, something that we talk about here is it's exciting. You were the question mark in terms of in-game leading. So instead of asking you about in-game leading, how's he been doing as an in-game leader?
Yeah, I think he's improving a lot. I think you can see that in the game as well. We're quite inconsistent sometimes, and then on the days we play great, I think Will's calling great as well, and I think it's input from everyone as well, but I think in the end Will makes the decision, and especially against Ens, I feel like he made the right decisions all the time.
Yeah, do you get those games where you kind of like, because I watched the way you guys playing, it seems quite systematic, especially in that Outsiders game. Was that specific because it was Outsiders because you were both giving each other a lot of space? Have you watched back the VOD yet? Is it too depressing to watch it back already?
No, I've watched it back. Yeah.
So what do you make of that game, right? Because you look at the way it unfolded, like that pistol round. That pistol round would have rocked me to the fucking core. You guys had a car crash in CT Arch on the pistol. It's like, holy shit, where is this gonna go?
Yeah, me and Kater spent like half an hour deciding which. I think we've had a really bad, a lot of bad pistol rounds, and we spent like half an hour deciding which pistol one went into the game, and everyone died in 3 seconds in CT spawn. So
there were 3 guys there.
Yeah, but like I think that just shows how random pistol rounds can be. But yeah, I think for us it's just, especially Outsiders, it's a tough matchup for us specifically. But I think overall, like FASHR said, with like inconsistencies, I think for me it's about making sure that like when we go down, like don't have the best start is like, I think it's always tough for me as a caller to like make sure that I can then still bring the ideas, and obviously if I'm not playing so well individually and we're also going down, it's like shifting my focus. Like now it's not so much about, whereas in the past I was kind of focusing on myself and make sure I can get back in the game, but it's more now like maybe I have to shift my focus and not so much like maybe micromanage a little bit more in those moments, because I don't do it so much when we're doing well, but maybe when we're going down I need to do it a little bit more so we can try and get back into the game. So I think it's just a lot of like work in progress for me, at least in the IGL role.
Okay. What you go on?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about the kind of the calling. You mentioned micromanaging. Obviously, you have Crims on the team, and you have kind of an old team, but an inexperienced team at the same time. So how much of the calling is free flow and just what people feel versus like you putting in kind of a predetermined plan in the game?
I think usually we have like a lot of freedom in the team. I think especially with Roy, who plays a lot of like the map control and star role. So especially the starter rounds is kind of like more his area, especially on most maps where he's kind of deciding, especially because we default a lot, and it's kind of more deciding how he likes to default and how many people he wants with him and so on. So I think it's kind of a lot of freedom in terms of that, and then I try and make more the calls like mid-round and when we're in certain position trying to make those calls, and then also like obviously we all have the freedom and like the responsibility to make calls at the start as well if we want to do certain strats and so on. But I definitely think it's more a lot of freedom in this team, and I think that's even though we have like a young team, like experience wise, I think everyone's confident enough to take initiative, and that's the most important thing, because even in the past, like even when we had Alex, I did some second calling, and when you have like inexperienced players that sometimes don't take initiative, at least for me, it's really hard to call around because I'm not very good at like constantly micromanaging, especially like when people don't take initiative. So it's good for this team that we can have all five individuals can make calls, and also I'm not having to look at the radar constantly and tell them you need to be here and this reaction you need to do this. And I think it's been really good that at least everyone can kind of take that responsibility themselves.
Okay. Is there a certain place, is there a certain team that you've gone, I like the way they approach CS and you want to based off of, or is it like, this is the pieces we have and this is the type of counter we're going to build? Because with what Prof was saying at the start, you've been in a bunch of different teams over this, short journey the last 1.5 years. And I'm sure there's a whole lot of different ways that in-game leaders have done things. Have you just taken parts, or is it you and Kita going, okay, this is how we want to approach? How have you boiled down the way you want to approach Counter-Strike?
I think I've definitely taken parts from each IGL I've played with, but also I think just speaking to obviously Crims as well and how they obviously used to play in fnatic in the old days. Obviously they played a bit more wild, and but they still had that kind of freedom and that free flow kind of style of counter. I think especially nowadays you see a lot more teams playing that default style. I think I really enjoy watching Na'Vi play, and I think even when you watch them, it's kind of weird because I think you can see from when you go after each tournament they have a lot of set rounds, but their set rounds are a lot different to most teams, where it's not just direct hits onto bomb sites and these flashy smokes and stuff. I think they play a style where it's they make all their strats look like defaults and kind of look the same, and I think that's kind of the way that a lot of teams are playing now, and I think that's the kind of way that we base it off, that we kind of want to make everything look the same and still have the defaults and not be too heavy on set strats and direct hits and so on. I think so for us it's kind of just making sure we mix it up, and that's kind of how Kita sees it as well, and taking his experience from complexity with BlameF, and so I think we're just kind of not honing in too much on one thing and kind of getting a mix. And because I think obviously against outsiders you didn't always have the answers, but against a lot of teams you're always going to have plan A, B and C, and
sure.
I think if you are constantly for example focusing too much on, okay, we've got to do this strat this round, this strat, and it's what are you going to do when a guy's anchoring a bomb site and they just kill you every single time and shut it down? So I think we're kind of, obviously it's still inconsistent at the moment, and there's always going to be inconsistent when all 5 players have got to make sure they're talking in game, and kind of how the Astralis, the legendary Astralis team kind of played, all 5 teams can take responsibility, maybe Glaive just at the start of the round says default, and then everyone's in play there. They have to call everything that's happening, and then it's on Glaive to make the call mid to late round. So that's kind of how we operate in this team and how we all see the game, and that's why we picked up Roy and Nico in the first place and made sure that FASHR could fit in as well.
Okay. Yeah.
I wanted to actually. I think you have a more related question.
Well, I was gonna kind of move to FASHR because I wanted to. Now, this is no disrespect to you, because I would ask you the same question, but we just had you going, so I wanted to pivot here. And also, look, this isn't a negative. Don't take this as a negative.
Yeah, okay.
You're 26, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in my mind, you're an adult now, right?
Yeah.
For sure, you know what's going on. You've had experience of the world. And then you come to an event like this, it's your first major, you get this opportunity, you're on the stage, you had, the whole group stage as well, which is pretty fucking crazy. And now you find yourself in this environment. And when we have a lot of players and we ask them and they're 17 or 18 and we're like, oh, you're in this stage, what's different? They can't really give us an answer because maybe they don't have the words to be able to do it, or the experience or whatever just in life to be able to form that type of an opinion. So from you in this experience, can you see the tangible differences, right? From what we were doing before, what I was doing online, to now coming to an environment like this? Are there check marks that you've seen and gone, oh, okay, I learned this time round, or this was the experience, I need to make sure that I focus on the crowd environment this way in the future? What were your learning experiences as somebody who was in this environment for their first time?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. Obviously, when you sit there, everything is different, because obviously the challenger stage was on stage already, and I've never played in front of such a crowd, so you hear less, and you're maybe getting a little bit too zoned in on the game, and not listening to your teammates, or not, just you lose a lot of things when they're talking, because you're so focused, and I hear the crowd, and you go oh, whoa, what's this, And I think that was nice for me to get in a challenger stage, because I think as progress made to the legend stage, and I think I stepped up a little bit in the legend stage.
After the interview?
Yeah.
Did you do an interview and you're I'm playing like shit? You're gonna play better?
Yeah, with Ryan, actually. Yeah. I said I was too inconsistent, and I feel like I still am, because I'm kind of new to the positions I play, and I just need the experience there, and I need to learn a lot. And I think I learn a lot in this team from everyone, the coach, Freddy, Roy, everyone learns things, teaches me things. I mean, and I feel like I just have to step up and listen to each other and give what Will's saying is like you need to call as well. Like if you think, oh, they're close ramp setup, I want you to do this and this, and then I think I really didn't do that in the challenger stage, and I feel like I did it more in the legend stage.
So take an initiative.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's the word I was looking.
But
for.
everybody's solving the puzzle together, right?
Yeah.
This is the trend of like modern Counter-Strike that you keep hearing, and obviously back in the SK days when their conversation was a lot about doing theory and sitting there with one another, and that's exactly what we're talking about now, right? The theory that you guys do, the detail of it in game is different from the concept of the motion, right? Like, hey, if we see this, this is how I need you need everybody to react independently of you having to say it, because by the time you said it, it's already too fucking late, right? Yeah. So that in Counter-Strike, and that's when we say everybody getting on the same page and everything like that. That it feels like such an impossible task to achieve with the high-level problem solving, because essentially we're solving a puzzle, right? And then you shoot people in the head. But you're solving a puzzle of decision-making, a high-level Counter-Strike. And that right there is something that's not unique to 2022, but it's unique to probably the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, like the Astralis era coming in and giving, but it's been taken to the nth degree. I feel
like like the online era kind of pushed that a bit more.
Yes.
Like when all of these like micro details were super important. Everyone knew all of the one-way smokes, how to counter this and that. So I felt like in that era with like Gambit guys and Heroic, it kind of exploded even more, that if you don't know how to counter all of these micro plays, you're just going to be destroyed. You won't have a chance, right?
Yeah, I think that's, especially with like in the online era with Gambit, like the Cloud9, that I think they were like one of the, well, they won quite a bit, and especially in their rise when they're in like the tier 2-3 scene and winning everything, I think they were definitely the team that at least I looked to a lot, because they were exactly how I'm kind of saying, like how they made everything look the same. They even now they do pretty much all the same things, and obviously that could be a detriment to them and why they're maybe like kind of getting a bit stuck or hitting a wall.
Plateau,
but I think with like them, and they were definitely like one of the teams that kind of like obviously after the Astralis, but they were in the online, throughout the online era, they were like the kings of just like defaulting on every single map and had their reactions, and everyone had like insane discipline, and I'm guessing they all have like really good communication, and they obviously have like a bit more experience now, but I think they were definitely like one of the teams when I was coming through. I think when I was playing with like Game Legion, Cloud9 and so on, I think they were obviously a team that I looked at quite a lot, because they were obviously being really successful and also playing a style that you could definitely replicate and see like consistencies, because like I said, I think there's always teams like throughout the past that have like, I think the older G2 lineup, when they'd come to a new tournament and have all these new rounds and it'd be really good, and then you get to the end of the tournament and you're constantly having to make new rounds because that's the way they're playing. But when you play a default style, it's like everyone has their like, it's a lot more consistent, and even though it becomes readable, but if you can make everything look the same and have different finishes of rounds, it doesn't really matter how you default, because it's so much harder for CTs to exploit when you're just defaulting, because there's less holes for them to exploit.
But that definitely goes into like a lot of the conversation that's been had at the moment, right, about default heavy Counter-Strike, right?
Yeah.
So it's good that, you know, we're at least not too far off the mark from what the pros have to say.
I think another thing that we were kind of correct was about like fnatic and mezii going to become this IGL, because that was kind of a hot topic, like, a new player, he's a star, he shouldn't be IGLing. I think one of the things, I don't know which episode this was, but we were talking about it, like a benefit for you is that you have more experienced players that can think and do things for themselves. Like it would be, I feel like, much more difficult if you're new IGL and then playing with like young players, like going into a MOUZ lineup, like today's MOUZ lineup. I feel like that would be a much more difficult task, because those guys were good in NXT, but they weren't really developed players. That maybe their communication isn't perfect, maybe they don't know how to take initiative. So this kind of maybe made it an easier step for you to go into IGLing.
Yeah, I think that was kind of like the talks we had like with Keita and Summerson, the manager, at the start, before like once we made the change and like kind of rebuilt the team again. They obviously, we had a lot of discussions to make sure that I wanted to do it, but also like on my side, and it had to make sense, like you said, with the players that we were getting, and that's why we spoke to Roy and Nico as kind of the perfect, because they'd obviously played together in the past, and Roy was obviously filling that star role, but also from what, after speaking to him and players that we've spoken to, had kind of said that how much responsibility he has, and he doesn't want to be the IGL, but he also has those qualities where he can second call and make a lot of decisions. So that was really important for me to actually go into the IGL role, because I even said at the start, like, I can't come in, like you said, with younger players and just micromanage and have to focus so much on that, because I know for a fact then if I did that, maybe it'd still be tough for me to call, but also it would take a lot on my individual skill and like impact in game, and that's something I didn't really want to do, because I still think I've got like a lot to give in terms of individual and individual play. So it was making sure that we had the right players, like you said, in the first place for me actually to go into this role, and it's kind of paying off now, and it makes my job a lot easier when we have 4 other players that can take the responsibility and also make calls, because if it was just me, I think there'd be a lot of rough games.
Just a question for you. It's also a question from the chat. How do you compare mezii and Goat from Sky?
Well, you say it already. Goat from Sky, best IGL in the world.
Yeah, but I feel like his style was more hands-on on the players.
Yeah, he was micromanaging basically everything.
Yeah,
I felt like I had a little bit more freedom in his system, because I was obviously like playing the Roy roles, the star roles, and taking the space for them. And I had a lot of success with taking the space always. So he, like, as we moved on, he let me a little bit like free, and I could do whatever I want.
But the rest of the team
was more focused around like supporting me, I would say. And I'm really happy they did, and they fully trusted me, because otherwise I think I wouldn't have made it to fnatic as well. But yeah, it's complete different styles actually, and actually funny. They asked me yesterday as well, Hugo and Harry, what do you prefer? But I don't know yet, because I haven't been playing too long in this lineup yet, and I've played a year with like even longer with Bird, so I know exactly what he wanted. So I can't really say what I prefer yet, but yeah, this is interesting as well. And obviously, when you transition in those new roles and like a new role in the team, you learn a lot from the game as well, instead of just doing the same over and over again, what works for you. And now I'm learning more about the game in general, and I think about the team play. And now I feel like I have a more important role now in this team than I had in the ecstatic one.
Even though you were a star over there.
Yeah, even though for me it felt like as long as I killed 2 in the rounds, should be fine, right? But now I maybe need to kill 1 in the rounds, but that could be the most important kill of the round if I peek at the right timing for them to split on Mirage A, for example, or something.
Okay, that's curious. Yeah, all right. So look, I like that answer a lot. Now, I want to kind of pivot here for a second, and then we'll dip back into more major stuff. But you boys are going to the Alyssa Masters very soon. With your performance here, now it's going to shift. Now you're going to go from, well, fnatic, they got a lot of firepower and they have potential, but we don't know yet, to they made it top 8 at a major. Now you're going to be the favorites at that event.
Yeah,
do you feel that?
Lose.
Do you feel that, enough. But do you feel that, like, it's like, oh, we're the favorites now?
No, not really. I don't, at least. Like, I haven't thought about it that way, though.
No, not for me either. I think kind of like, obviously we made playoffs here, but it was also like one of our top goals. Like, if we really wanted to set the bar high, it was to make playoffs. Like, that was always going to be one of the harder things to achieve. And we're kind of a team that's kind of setting like quite a few goals to make sure that we're not setting the expectations too high and putting too much pressure on ourselves. So I think obviously here was like, because we went from the open qualifiers all the way to here, so it was obviously a long road. So we made sure that like we got here, and first things first, we needed to actually qualify for the major, and we did that. And then it was kind of like, once we got to the actual major challenger stage, was to make sure that we can set the goals like to get to the legend stage. That was our actual goal, and then anything after that was a plus. So I think now it's kind of like we've done it, but it's also we know where we're at. Like, I think we made playoffs, and we also didn't play that good of Counter-Strike at this event. So I think we all know our potential and know that once we go into this Elisa tournament, that we're obviously could be seen as like one of the top teams there.
Alongside the Ents and stuff, right? Yeah.
I think we don't feel the pressure as a team just yet, because we also know that we're like very realistic with where we're at, and we've got a lot of stuff to improve on, and we can always be better. So I think we're not putting that pressure on us just yet. Maybe if we win Elisa, it might change. But
what's the progression then, right? Like, is it just we take each event as it comes and we set goals on the fly, or have you gone like, okay, so in this 6-month period, we want to try and achieve this, and not even in terms of results, but in terms of also where your game is at, right? Because you're saying there's still a lot to learn and add and everything. Like, how far into the peak of this roster of Fnatic do you think you are? Like, are we at like, oh, we're only at 30% now, and we have like 70% to grow? Like, what do you think? If you had to try and put a number on something that's hard like that.
I think it's like I said, I think it's hard, but I think going from when we played like Pro League and stuff, I think we actually played really good Counter-Strike, but it was also limited because our map pool was pretty bad at that point. We're still a new team. I think even at this point, I've been playing for like 4 months or something, but I think once we played at Pro League, we played really good CS and didn't have the map pool. And then going to this event, we felt like we had kind of a good mix. Like we had a improved map pool, playing good CS, and then we got here and I think we kind of like in some games choked a little bit and maybe like froze up a little bit in some of the games, and especially against outsiders, I think we played a bit scared. But I think overall we're kind of like getting to the point now that we just need to really get the consistency going, because I think I definitely don't think we're like, I think we're on the right track going from Pro League and the RMR to this point, but then at this point we kind of like took a step down, even though the overall placing is higher and the achievements better. I just don't think the CS was as good, so I think we're still like, I don't know, not even halfway there. I don't think with the potential we have. Like I think on our day we can, like the individuals we have and the firepower we have, we can definitely match with most teams. It's just about getting the consistency and obviously experience. Like you said, we're still a young team in terms of experience and getting the stage experience and playing, like when you play against outsiders who have been at major finals and like especially with James, who's apparently got the biggest brain in
He's
CS.
A genius,
He's
apparently.
a genius, so it's like I can't do anything against them.
Okay, so yeah, look, I think this is where now with this we can dip back into talking a bit more about today, and we can use your experiences and your very in-depth knowledge to help educate us and the viewer at home of what might happen today, right? Because we're obviously looking at MOUZ going up against outsiders as the match to kick off these semi-finals. Do you look at this and do you have a clear favorite? Like if you go this on, is it on paper? I go, yeah, these guys are the heavy favorite. Like, do you, or from the practice you've had against these teams, how do you feel?
Yeah, we obviously played them both in a BO3, and I think Will has to agree with me here that outsiders feel way better than MOUZ did, at least.
Okay.
I felt like when we were playing against MOUZ, we kind of had an off day. Every one of us, like we didn't really feel great. Like maybe someone was ill and like the communication was not there. We had like bad plays, and I felt like especially the playoff game against outsiders, they just destroyed us. You know, like obviously we didn't play that well either, but we felt like we got destroyed against outsiders.
James said it was a close game, closer than the score.
Yeah,
said.
James said that.
He said that.
I watched the game back and they outplayed us completely.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I would say as well if I was him.
That's what I was saying in the cast. I felt like a bit of a dick, like because it was like I could see the way the rounds were unfolding, and I was like, well, they've outstacked them again, or you know, they've like.
That's how it felt as well in game.
Yeah. And
I saw the interview and he said that. I was like, oh, I feel a bit better now. watched the game back and I just thought, like especially on Mirage, they completely outplayed us. Like I think they like the first 5-6 rounds they completely switched up how they play, and we were playing a certain way that we thought they'd play super slow, and then just like direct hits rushing B, and I couldn't hold B against them, and then after that they went back to their older stuff, and like they completely outplayed us on Mirage. At least I think they were definitely the better team there and a lot tougher to play against. I think at least for me, I even had it in my pick'ems that, and even said to everyone, I think if we could have beat outsiders, I was like 100% confident we could have gone all the way, because I think they were like obviously a bad matchup for us, but I think they're playing that well. Like if we could have got to the level to beat them, then I think we could have like at least consistently played at level for the rest of the tournament and actually gone all the way, because I think that was the one matchup that I don't think any of us really wanted. Again, obviously FURIA would have been completely different on the stage, but I think outsiders for us is like a really tough matchup, and I think at least for me now, like they're one of the favorites to take it. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to agree with him.
You said it's a tough matchup for you, and this is something that we kind of outlined
we spoke
as well.
About map pool, especially.
Yeah, map pool, but also in game, just stylistically, it feels like they're a tough team to break down individually. For you as a player, how does it feel in the game to play against outsider?
Yeah, really tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't feel comfortable playing against them. I don't know why. It's just like.
Do they not give you the duels that you want?
Yeah,
the
they're
utility?
so slow, and they're just like waiting you out, and I'm like, come, I want to kill you, but they don't come, you know, and it's like, yeah, I think they play really structured and really good CS, and they hit at the right moments. Everyone does their job at the same time, and like for example, Mirage on A side, I felt really uncomfortable because I didn't know where to stand, because everything got mollied. Then they came out Palace first, and then they came out Ramp first, and then they came out Con first. So I really didn't know where to hold first, you know, where would the first contact be, and that was really uncomfortable for me. And I think they did a really good job on that.
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, I think they're one of the teams that also make, like, they can split A 5 times in a game on Mirage, for example, and make it look exact same, but then like Dion says, sometimes they're 2 palace, sometimes they're 2 ramp, sometimes they're 3 con, and I think like if people watch it back, you can kind of see like it's super hard to read, and that's kind of how I think obviously we want to get to that point. On some maps we kind of have it. Like I think I won't mention the game at Overpass because they actually 15-0. Just don't want to say that we're playing too well on that, but I think overall, I think they're the only team that's kind of owned us on that map, and I think we're kind of getting to that stage on Overpass, and on Mirage it's like kind of tough for us because we're still like trying to build our map pool. But I think those guys like do a really good job at like making everything look the same, but have a few different looks like on finishes and stuff. So it's super hard to read against those guys.
So why no Dust 2?
I have no clue. We keep saying it. We want to play this too.
Well, you don't like it?
No.
No, that's fair enough, right? Like if the leader doesn't like it, then that makes it more difficult to call on that map, right?
I mean, I think we tried it in the last lineup, like towards the end. Obviously, the last lineup with Alex and when we played with Pepzor and Poison wasn't really a very good lineup or anything. It didn't go very well.
I imagine there was more than a few issues there, Matt. Don't you worry about that.
But we tried to play it there because I think it was kind of like there's nothing else working, so we tried. But I don't know. I don't mind siege side, but just calling on that map, it just feels the worst. I don't know.
So you get a long spawn, you almost have to take it all the time. Yeah. You take your short control, you wait and find out where the rotating player is, you hope the AWPer shoots a shot mid, and then, you know, it's a map that seems like so formulaic and bland. But do you wish that gets removed? Dust 2 goes?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'd rather have Mirage go. But
hey, that's the problem. Here's the issue with this. When we're in an arena and the crowd cheers for Mirage and Avito, we're never getting rid of that fucking map. That's the problem.
And Val was there just sitting like,
they're all smiling like, yeah, of course this isn't going. Yeah, look, I feel like
I mean, Mirage delivered a lot of bangers this tournament. Can't deny that.
I just don't like the map that much. So.
Yeah, that's fair.
The thing is, like I said this a lot, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, but like all we're doing at the moment, especially with a map like Mirage, is just adding onto the current meta, like trying to grab something tiny and evolve that little piece on the map, right? Maybe it's a different way of throwing a similar smoke so you can fake something somewhere. But this is why I like Ancient, and that's why I know a lot of people dislike my opinion on this, because a lot of people don't like new things. But new things for Counter-Strike players and Counter-Strike minds is a way to be creative with the tool set available. Like, this is a good choke point. This is a key piece of real estate that we think we have to control. I'd love it. I was talking to Mahone at breakfast, and he said that he would love it if Valve changed out 2 maps because it would stop teams from just shifting their permaban. They would have to learn one of the 2 new maps, right? Because you have to have the 5 to 6 map pool, right? Yeah. So that would be cool to force teams into having to be creative in that, but I don't know if they would ever do anything that drastic. Like that's the thing. It
also removes the kind of the luck part, because when Astralis' permaban got removed the last time, it's like that's kind of unfair, right? Yeah. And then someone else's best map gets removed, so it really kind of shifts the power dynamic between the teams.
That would be interesting to change too, at least. I think it would be, like I said, a new challenge for a lot of teams, and doesn't make it so easy for some when you just change one. But I think 2 would be interesting. Definitely get rid of Dust 2 though. As long as that map's gone, I'm happy. It's just I haven't. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because I don't really. Whenever it comes on, I don't really watch it because obviously we don't play it as a team, so there's not much point me even watching it. So maybe some things have changed, but I think at least with Mirage, like I said, I think there's always obviously parts of the map that need to be contested and control you need to take, and the same across all maps. But I think at least Mirage, some teams are getting a bit more creative, and like I said with Na'Vi, they have it seems like a lot of set rounds, but they look like defaults, and they've got, even yesterday against FURIA, there quite a few new rounds with like a lot of different like mini fakes and like taking control elsewhere off the fakes and then going into splits. And I think people are getting more creative on that map, and maybe they're on Dust 2, but it's always felt the same, at least on that map.
There's slightly new options, right? With a lot more teams flirting with like lower dark and mid aggression and CTs, but like that's still evolving right now. So yeah, I get it. And then this is the thing. You ask most teams what map they'd want to remove. Most of them, and you're the exception to this, would say their permaban, right? So that's a pretty consistent conversation there. Okay, so from the chat we've had, it feels like you boys think outsiders are going to beat MOUZ and be in that final position. But when you look at MOUZ in this event so far, like, they're obviously having to play some good Counter-Strike to get here. So what is it that you think is the shortcoming of MOUZ against outsiders, or are outsiders just too strong in those areas you highlighted, like their defaults and the way that it's always a mystery of what they're going to finish with?
I think MOUZ are like, at least one of the teams that are actually doing really well on the T sides on most of their maps, which is obviously a bit different. Because I think most teams are shutting down CT sides at the moment, and they're struggling more on CT sides than they are T sides. But I think with outside, it's just like, well, with MOUZ, they have a lot of individuals that can make plays and do some stuff that maybe they'll catch teams off. But I think it's super hard to catch outsiders off whenever they're just
Jane will just be waiting for you.
Yeah, Jane will just be waiting. You decide to push like I don't know, B-apps or something, and he's just sat there, and it's just I think they just play a style that's like it's really tough to play against when you have like a lot of young individuals like Xtrfy and Frozen who are just going to make a lot of plays, and obviously they have like Frozen has the experience to play against them, has probably played against them many times, but I think just the way outsiders play it makes it really tough to read and kind of play against when you kind of have those individuals that make plays. And like so, I think definitely their T sides, outsiders T sides is their strong point. So I think it's kind of like, yeah, I think MOUZ are definitely going to struggle in that.
Is there any angle that you see for MOUZ? Like, is there kind of a win condition?
They have to win Inferno in the veto. They have to get Inferno in the veto, but they have to win Inferno in the map pool.
Yeah,
I feel.
Yeah, I think like obviously like what Will mentioned is like if they get rolling on their T sides with Exertion and Frozen like actually popping off, I think they could do it. But if outsiders will shut them down, I think when MOUZ comes to their CT side, I don't think they will push it over the line to win the game.
Because we would discuss this yesterday. I don't know if we did it on the show or if we did it after or before or whatever, but we were talking about how many times MOUZ had played against outsiders in the last month. They played 6 maps.
Yeah.
So they played 2 best-of-3s and a best-of-1. And the only game that MOUZ won was the best-of-1. Everything else, so they won a map in a best-of-3, but this was in Rotterdam. And then it was close it was close on Ancient, a 16-12 scoreline. Here at the Legend stage, they played Inferno Overpass. It was 16-10, 16-10. So they have a lot of history. Not how. Like, we know that's obviously going to change the approach to the game, right? Because the mind games are now on a different level. It's like, well, you know what we did last time, so this time and that time. Like, it becomes this whole different game within the game. So do you think that adds any factor? Like, because it's gone against them so many times, are they now due to like have solved that puzzle? Like, it's weird, right? Because we're talking about things we don't know. We can't possibly know what Dexter and Cyclone are thinking. But does that add a positive or a negative to MOUZ in your mind, I suppose?
I think they might think it's positive, but I think when you go up against outsiders, especially like James, I think they're just all like complete ice cold. And I think even when we played him in the first best of 3, and then when we spoke to him or had one of the interviews on Media Day with them, a Flip was just like, yeah, it would be the same veto against us. So it was like, okay, and we played pretty much the exact same match, just in like a different order. And I think they're just like so like focus on themselves and don't really care too much about another team. So I think MOUZ might think it could be a positive for them, like they've got the experience against them, they might have cracked the code, and maybe we're still a young team, and we also probably thought we're watching them back and think they just made us look like idiots in some of the game, like the first game, and then the second game, like it's over for them. We've cracked the code, but I think it's just like
then it happened again.
Then it happened again. So I think obviously the big point for MOUZ is just their individuals. I think like they've been pretty consistent individually, like playing super well. So I think when you're going up against outsiders, that's like the first thing you definitely have to make sure, because I think whereas before they had like, I think this lineup's definitely it's not obviously not a flame to Yakinda, but I think this lineup's definitely better than when they had Yakinda, because they've kind of built a system around all plays instead of like obviously Yakinda. I think 90% of the games he does pop off and get loads of entry kills, but I think in that lineup, and you can see like when teams shut down him, they didn't really have the second option, and now they have like, I think Fame's like insanely talented. Yeah. So I think, and then you've got Flit as well, who's insane, and then you've got James who's controlling it all, and then the safe options of Norbert and Kickit. So I think now they've got much more well-rounded like roster and like system they're playing around. So I think that's why it would be tough for MOUZ. But like I said, I think the first thing they need to do is make sure their individuals are popping off, and I think they can definitely do it. It's just not the second options. If they're not popping off, then
they're fucked.
It's kind of hard to see where they can go from there, because I don't think they have the experience as a roster yet to have that like plan B.
Okay.
The opping disparity is pretty big, I feel like, even though in one way it feels like James is the most underutilized opper in terms of like how skilled he is, but how little it actually shows on the server, because he just goes for the safest duels all the
when
time.
when you play against him, you can actually feel like the first game we talked about it. We saw invisible AWPs everywhere. We're like, oh, he could be here. Oh, he could be here. Oh, he could be here. And that like we really scared of James.
Yeah.
So like the illusion guy in Dota or whatever.
What, the Spectre.
Yeah.
There you go. So, or is it PA?
I don't know.
Phantom Assassin. I know my Dodo. Someone in chat wanted to know about the key bindings of you, but you both have fucked key bindings. You have inverted mouse. And you don't have inverted mouse.
You know who else
Not that
played with
crazy.
inverted mouse?
Maniac. And Havoc, who I used to play with, and Top Gun. 2 guys in my team, but they were old. We're old now, right?
Top Gun and inverted mouse. That's kind of funny.
It came from their influence came from Quake. Did your influence come from Quake?
It's from my dad. He didn't play Quake, I think.
Okay, Unreal Tournament, maybe something like that.
Yeah. Back in the day, Wolfenstein 3D and everything, and Flight Simulator and whatnot.
Okay, so you just jumped on the gear and that's how it was set.
Yeah. Yeah, we basically don't know any better where you're like 3 years old, 4 years old, and you sit on his lap and just start playing games, and he's like, oh, this is moving forward, or this is jump, blah, blah,
You
blah.
definitely didn't Google simple config.
No. No. I just started playing, and then obviously when you get like older and you play with older people, and they're like, what the hell are you doing? This is not right. And I'm like, I don't know any better.
What was the reaction when you figured out you both move forward on mouse 2?
I think we knew it before already, because obviously it get posted on Twitter a lot. And,
But I thought mine was messed up and kind of weird, and then when I saw FASHR, and it's on a completely another level. Like the inverted mouse, but then also that the movement keys are so like on this, like not even like if it was on this side of the keyboard and you use the arrow
arrows,
keys, it'd be fine. But then you're using like all the punctuation and I don't know. It's just it's so I think I was showing something on the server and I completely forgot he used mouse too. I was like, let me just show you this smoke, and I go, can you move? Because I was holding the mouse, and he was like, you use mouse too as well. I was like, oh yeah.
I guess that at least that's a positive for the two. You got something in common in that regard, right? So there
happily
you go.
Together.
Yeah. When look, there's not you guys are a dying breed. I can't imagine there's too many other players, at the top level of Counter-Strike who have as crazy settings as the two of you guys. So should wear as the badge of honor. Right?
I will.
Well, unless they go on and win a major, then there's a lot of new players going to be like, oh, these are the bindings.
I'm getting so many messages that I should upload my config. So many DMs, but I don't do it because no one's going to use it. So what's the point of uploading it?
Yeah, it's going to be completely foreign to people, right? So yeah. Okay. Well, where should we pivot into the second semifinal?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Okay. So the second game is going to be mental, as I think you boys were there last night, right?
Yeah.
So I love it. Yeah. Okay. So you guys saw the fucking craziness, right? The Made of Madness is the tagline they're running with here, and it was wild in there, right? Simple made the tweet about not getting booed. He definitely got booed. Maybe that even enticed them to do it a little bit more so. But when I saw this is the thing, when you see those kids, the FURIA boys walk out on stage to that, it's like, and everyone's singing the national anthem, and like I could not
actually
imagine what that feels like.
I was walking away as the anthem started playing, and there was a lady, like a cleaning lady, cleaning, and as the song started, she just stopped cleaning and put her hand on the heart. I'm like, this is adorable.
It is wild, right? Because there's a lot of nationalistic pride here around the team, and I think here for FURIA, there's a lot of conversation about this being like the changing of the guard or the coming of age for them now to be the new Brazilian hope, right? Because before, and maybe it still will be with Fallen for a little while, that will be a bit more residual. But if they go through here and get to the grand final and they win the whole thing, that inspires the next generation of fans. And then it's Art who now takes that position, or Queserado and Yuri, right? So they're in a really interesting position from a storyline perspective, but from a Counter-Strike perspective as well. You can see how they play differently with the surge of the crowd, right? Like and we would always talk about these things on here, and we would say, hey, when it's loud, you can play with the fact that there is the rumblings, and you can play a little bit faster, and it's harder to hear things. But in that environment, I played at an event, right, back in Australia. It was a WCG qualifier in like fucking 2007 or some shit. And for some dumb reason, they decided to have an MC on stage talking the whole time. And the speakers were super loud, and you couldn't hear anything. It was like a volume 0 game. And we played Nuke. So what do you do on the CT side? You just rush lobby and you fucking catch all the T's off guard, right? I imagine that's a similar situation as what FURIA found themselves in yesterday. And I imagine that's a similar situation that they're going to find themselves in today. But the difference is the type of Counter-Strike. Na'Vi play, as you mentioned, more default by the book type stuff. Whereas these two teams, it's going to be like a Dragon Ball Z fight with fucking Goku and Frieza just fucking bouncing off of each other, and we can't even see what's going on because the playstyle of these two teams is really chaotic, right? So do you think because of that factor and the crowd being on FURIA's side that is going to be like a big positive because of the playstyle to help them even more, or do you think it's going to just cancel each other out and both teams will be kind of operating in the blind?
I think it might cancel each other out. I think, like, even when you saw against Na'Vi yesterday, FURIA, I think they obviously made a lot of plays, like on Nuke, like you said, even they were like pushing lobby a lot, and I think sometimes maybe they got a bit overexcited because I think there was a few rounds where they got like 5v2s or something and would like continue pushing, and it would get into like a 2v2, and you'd think if only they just like kind of reeled it back a little bit. But I think against Heroic it's going to be, like you said, really interesting because I think it might just cancel each other out, and they play two pretty similar styles. I think obviously they're both really aggressive and like to push a lot and rotate towards a lot of like the noise on the map. But I think it would just be really interesting to see because I think the thing is now it's not even just the crowd that's kind of pushing FURIA on. I think they're just playing like good CS, and also K-Sarata is just insane.
Beast
like
mode.
yeah. And even yesterday Drop, like you would see is like kind of like obviously the younger player, less experience and isn't performing as well as the others. But yesterday, even he had like some really big rounds, performed really well. So I think even then, it's like they're playing really well individually and also have the crowd. I think you kind of in the back of your mind think it's going to run out at some point, like the big push. But and obviously they're coming up against, I would say, probably are a better team on paper and Heroic, but also I think it feels kind of like meant to be like kind of their tournament to win. So even if it does cancel it out, I think we're also still waiting to see like Heroic on the big stage like actually perform as well. I think they've kind of had a couple chances, but I think now with their newer lineup, they're kind of hitting a good stride and performing well in all their games so far. So it'll be interesting to see if they can actually. Because obviously, even yesterday when they played, they had kind of even though it wasn't the biggest crowd, like they had the crowd on their side, and now it's going to be the complete opposite, and maybe it might be a bit. They're obviously going to be ready for it because they're playing against FURIA and they know it's going to happen, but it's kind of waiting to see if they can still perform when they're completely not on their side.
And this is where the conversation changes from like the X's and O's of Counter-Strike to the intangible of the impact of a crowd, right? So like, there's the beast of burden on FURIA in the sense that the expectation, the want for them to win is so great, but is that a positive or a negative? Well, first test, big tick, positive, right? Like it helped them get across the line against the Na'Vi, which is like a huge victory in itself. We were here the day before going, well, they haven't been anyone good, and now they're versing a good team. So they're going to say, well, goodbye, right? But that didn't happen whatsoever. And it was good games of Counter-Strike from them, as you guys have highlighted here. Now, I want to ask either of you, well, look, maybe you can, maybe you can't, but let's pretend the camera's not on. If you, like, because I get the privilege of casting that matchup. You got any nuggets for me for either team that I can take into this cast to kind of add or sprinkle in? Or is there anything from your perspective of the way that you highlight them or the way that you frame them or the way that you brand these teams that would be an interesting little nugget in a cast that you think should be spoken about these squads? Yeah, no, lots of pressure. No worries if not. I've got my little book here. I've been trying to write some shit down.
Yeah, well, obviously we have more experience precking against Heroic, so I'm thinking about.
I mean, they're just the hardest team.
Yeah,
to play
they're
against.
really hard to play against. You have to.
They're the hardest team to play against.
I feel like.
I think especially when the hard thing with Heroic is just when they play a team they know they're better than. I think that's why they had they didn't have an easy run, but I mean they played so well throughout the whole like legend stage and then throughout, because I think when they play against teams like they have the insane confidence against in the best of ones, best of threes, they're just like completely run over you. And I think whereas like when you compare them to say like I think outsiders in the late run like CT sides have similar styles where they like to stack and gamble a lot. I think the difference with Heroic is that there's always one more person you think, and also it doesn't feel so gambly. Like when you watch them and when you play against them, there's so much like rotating towards a lot of noise on the map. It's never like, okay, let's just push here and hope they're not here, and get the info. I think they're really calculated in terms of the way they push and the way they rotate around the map, because you watch a demo back and go, why are they 4B? It's just so random. But then you look back and maybe the tease through like 2 extra nades or something, and they know there's like 3 guys there instead, and they know the other side's weak, so they just go 4 guys there and rotate there. So I think with Heroic it's a lot more calculated and a lot harder to play against, because you have to be a lot more discreet in the way you play and on the T side. So I think with that it's like the kind of difference. And with FURIA, I don't think they're obviously discreet in their play. They're a lot more aggressive with a lot of guys, and I think that's why it will cancel out, and also could be hard for FURIA because the way Heroic play, it's just like I said, it's the only thing with Heroic is just making sure they actually do it and like don't like kind of choke or get too much pressure on themselves when they're actually playing, because when they're in that zone, it's kind of like nothing can stop them because they're always making the right reads and it's not random. But when they get on the stage and there's a lot more noise and a lot more pressure, maybe they don't hear the extra nades, maybe they don't hear the extra steps, they might not make the right reads and they're going in a bit more blind. So I think it's just kind of making sure they can like limit that as much as they can, which is going to be hard because the crowd's just crazy. So
yeah, well, what's like the question now? You talk about the crowds. Like obviously, when Heroic was playing, they were cheering for Heroic. You know, Cadian, like Cadian likes it as well. He has a Brazilian flag. You know, he really lives up to that hype and he plays better because of it. But do you think now, when they walk in, do you think they will get booed because FURIA is playing?
100%.
And do you think they will boo Cadian as well? Well, they are his hero.
Yeah.
I think that might affect Cadian a lot.
Well, the reason, and like I think that it'll affect them because how could you not? Like it's this wave of energy that no one has experienced before. You cannot prepare yourself.
It's all around you as well, like everywhere.
But the key that they have as a positive in this environment, and it seems crazy that we're using the negative of their past as a positive now.
Yeah.
But if any team knows what it's like to have the mentality as a unit to shell up and say, it's us against the world, it's Heroic.
Yeah.
Because of the shit that happened with the Hunden stuff and then all the fallout around that, and then not only
Denmark as well.
Exactly, right? So they know what it's like to be labeled as the villain, to be the bad guy, right? They don't have to taunt the crowd. They don't have to make the crowd hate them more. The crowd's already going to hate them. It's just about use, because Cadian, we've spoken to him before, and he's the type of guy who will use, like the Michael Jordan story, the fuel of something else. He will create a story. He doesn't need to create a story in this environment, but he will create a story as motivation. So he doesn't need to create the story today. He's going in there to silence Brazil. If that was me, that's what I'm doing. I'm looking around, I'm going, yeah, we're going to go in here, we're playing against FURIA, but we need to fucking silence Brazil, right? And you're bang on in the sense of them being prepared for that or not being prepared for that. Like, it's impossible to be prepared for that. Cadian, I think that he will be able to handle it because he has been the shield, right? He has been the protective father figure who's taking all the shrapnel, right, while he tries to protect the rest of his boys from the bullshit. Today, he can't protect them. Today, they need to become just as strong, because if they don't, they're fucked. Like, I couldn't, like, having that crowd, like, I was on one of the, like, the bleacher levels, and these people are, like, hanging off the fucking rafters, and they're all, every time Simple came on camera, I assume they were saying, fuck you, Simple, right? And, like, every time, and it's like, if you look up and you look around and you see this, I feel like that could consume you, you know? Like, it's not only for the fact that it's, like, they're against you. I wasn't watching the game half the time. I was looking at the crowd because I was just in awe of the madness. It's
and they're like singing as well, like you're gonna die and everything. I heard some Portuguese people told me, like, do you actually know what they're singing? I'm like, no. Yeah, they're singing "You're Gonna Die." Like, okay,
that is where we don't understand actually. That like cultural thing. Like, for me, it's very jarring. Like, I'm assuming it's the same in the UK. I'm assuming it's the same in the Netherlands. I don't know about where you're from, mate, but I know like in Australia, if they're singing "You're Gonna Die," like everyone's like, hey, wait, what the fuck? But it's like that. Hey, that's not on. But like here,
it's
like,
that far.
Here, it's like part and parcel of it. And like, okay, I suppose that we'll just get on with this, shall we? Like, what? I don't know. It's different, right? It's a completely different environment that we have available here. But I guess you're building it up on paper, right? This is the same with all these matches. On paper, Heroic are the favorites.
Yeah.
But in the server, should we just toss a fucking coin? That's what it feels like, right?
But it feels like what mezii outlined as the kind of the edges for Heroic. A lot of it could get canceled out on this stage, especially if, like, in terms of the sound. This is actually a question for you guys. Obviously, it wasn't that big of a crowd when you were playing, but how much can you feel it, especially on this stage? Because I feel like I'm not sure, but I feel like there's not like a lot of white noise. I feel like it's more there. Like everything's there. So like, how much does it affect the communication and what you can hear?
I feel like when you, especially when the crowd's only if it's 10 people already and they go, ooh, you know something's gonna happen. You hear it.
Yeah.
And I think I think in the challenger stage that wasn't that much of an issue. I really didn't hear it that way.
I think obviously, like you said, the crowd wasn't as big when we played, but I think the hardest game was even when we played against mezii in the challenger stage, because obviously there was a pretty big crowd there and supporting them. And it was more like just the drums and everything. I think because we played OG the day before and was like there wasn't obviously a big crowd. It was like obviously a lot easier, but going into that game, it was like you could tell it was completely different. Like I think I got into the game, we were playing Mirage, and on B side I just couldn't hear anything. Like people jumping down, or like don't hear anything. So it's like it's obviously a new experience for us, but I think against FURIA, it's like you just won't hear anything against them. So
I mean, you can see in the Navi game, kind of one of the last rifle rounds, and FURIA went B. Obviously, Art is just running up short, and I don't know, Perfecto, I think maybe on the B side or something. He's just standing there, free kill, then they get another free kill on the rotation because no one hears anything. So it's like a complete collapse just based on, I'm pretty sure the information wasn't there. Otherwise, like someone would react it differently. So it's a weird thing to deal with in this kind of just the scale of the sound being obfuscated is different.
Let me put you on the spot like it's a desk. Like, you have to make a prediction. Who are you predicting to win the game?
I've got FURIA in my pick 'em, so
okay.
I think FURIA will win.
Okay. All right, so FURIA Outsiders final.
Yes.
And Outsiders win.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, their style
I can't bet against them, so
their style is the perfect like anti-aggressive style, right? And you know what's curious with what you just mentioned there is the fact that
it's very funny. Olaf's in the elevator over there, and the door is like closing and then open like 5 times.
And you waved at him?
He's just stuck. No, I waved at Apollo actually.
Oh, okay, Mr. Sean Clark.
Yes.
Here's the funny thing with this. There was a dream. I think it was a dream hack. I think there was a dream hack here in 2019, and the grand final was Avantgarde, which is Jamin Kickit, against FURIA, and they won. Avantgarde won.
Feels real,
right? If we get back to that final and it's Outsiders versus FURIA, and it's like that's what we had all those years ago, and we get that again here, and FURIA win, that could be fucking crazy. Like, it's taken them 3 years, but that is like as a fun story, as a fun little nugget for people to go back to. That's a cool little storyline there. But it feels like if even you guys like, FURIA are going to win. Like, I know you're not said the grand final, but even this match, it's like everybody's buying into the romance of this event.
Yeah, I was like, people asked me as well with the Navi FURIA game, who's going to win? I said like probably Navi, but it would be nice if FURIA wins. But then I saw the game and I was like, I feel like the Brazilians, the FURIA Brazilian players, obviously, they get so much energy from it as well, and they really want to perform. And I think they even maybe overperform on that way, and I think they can do the same against Heroic again.
No,
even though their Heroic is the better team.
I'm really hoping FURIA just for my pick'ems, because I went with my heart and got us all the way, but obviously that didn't go well. But I think the only problem is like, I think with Heroic, like we spoke about, I think obviously the crowd can affect them, but with Outsiders, I don't see there's any outside like other factor that can affect them.
Okay.
Like they're just so ice cold. It's just like nothing affects them. So and that's why I think like FURIA can definitely beat Heroic, because there's a few different factors. Heroic could be affected. FURIA obviously playing well, but going up against Outsiders, I don't think they're just like, they're not phased at all. So
okay.
I think the only thing that we didn't touch upon, maybe we can, I don't know if you had anything else before we close the show, but Thimple being the bottom fragger for Navi yesterday.
Yeah, well, no.
How shocking is that?
Yeah, and look, it felt like I guess it's weird to see Simple have a performance like that, being Simple, especially in those type of environments, because you think that's where he thrives. But what do we put it down to, right? Because I'm trying to come up with a way to define pressure, because we love throwing the term around to pressure, right? And he was enemy number 1, right? Navi was the enemy, but Simple was enemy number 1. So he's copying a lot more of that, and he was also playing up with the crowd and stuff. He understood, he embraced the situation, and he had that focus, but was unable to perform in the way that we know and love. Because I'm trying to think about pressure, right? So pressure causes stress, right? So when you feel you're stressed, you're feeling the stress, and that stress makes you use more energy, so you get fatigued, and then you make more mistakes. Now in Counter-Strike, like some of the mistakes can be missing a nade, right? Throwing a premature molly, accidentally hitting the lip of a sandbag or whatever. Feeling more pressure from the opponent, like in your game, for example, it looked like you guys felt like you're under a lot of pressure on B on Inferno. You were dropping your smokes really quick, for example, right? That's pressure, right? Is that a fair way to summarize it?
Yeah, I guess.
So, and then that stress builds over a game, and then you try and make up for it. So you're making bigger steps, or you're making less, but you're not playing your game, right? Okay. I feel like I can be still more succinct with that. I'm still trying to work out the best verbiage for it. But we don't normally say simple gets stressed. So what do we put it down to?
I don't know. I think you can, even when you watch, you can visibly see he's probably stressed. Like the way his like body language is, he's definitely stressed. But I think he's always thriving in those situations anyway. So
okay,
I think it's hard to say. I think yesterday it kind of felt like sometimes he was doing a bit too much, like maybe trying to get himself back in the game and going too far. But it's obviously like,
yeah, I think when on Nuke, when he sat in the smoke with a ramp, I think that's.
But then you can also say like he's also done the past and kills 4 guys. So it's like, and that's just the way he plays and his confidence. And even though he's stressed, he always thrives. So I think it's hard to say. And just sometimes like, I think it's just like the pedestal that we've all put him on, and other players like, you don't expect him to have a bad game, and sometimes it just happens. You know, I think he's performed pretty well throughout the whole year, and like even when you see some like Zyro as well, he had a 108 rated, and it's like, oh, that's awful. But for most players, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good. So it's the same with Simple. Like obviously he had a really bad game yesterday, but it's like, I mean, it happens. And like I said, I don't think the stress or pressure got to him because he's continuously proved it in all tournaments and all games. So I think it's just like kind of an off game where he tried to get himself back in the game, went a bit too far, but didn't work out. So I think it just happens sometimes.
Yeah, and it was up against this surge of energy that we're talking about on the other side, right? So it's a unique situation for the context of all this. He tweeted, he's like, "I'll be back," you know. Like, I saw his tweet. Okay, well, I guess we can close this one down for now. This has been good. It's been about an hour. Thoroughly enjoyed having the two of you on here. Now, I'd like to give an opportunity. Do you guys want to say anything to the fans? Is there a question that you wish you were asked that you say, hey, Chad, ask us this question so we can give you the answer? Is there anything that you want to say to the people at home?
I'll leave this one to you.
I hope people don't doubt us that much anymore. Like especially Wills Nigel. I think he showed like great potential now in getting us to the quarterfinals, and I think we're ready to improve more and to show ourselves more. Nothing else, I guess.
Cool. Yeah. Happy with that?
Big up the team. Thanks to all the fans.
Yeah. Thank you for the support, obviously.
Beautiful. And they can see you again in what?
Elisa.
5 days' time.
Yeah.
Holy
Thursday,
shit.
Right?
You're flying directly to there?
No, home for 1 day.
Do some washing.
Yeah. And then to Finland.
Okay. Well, lucky it's only 4 hours difference, right? So, well, maybe for you it's a little bit more. For you it's
less.
5. No, it's less.
Yeah.
It's only 3 hours difference. Ah, lucky bugger. All right. Well, that should be pretty easy to deal with, boys. Once again, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for giving your time. Thank you for giving us the insight. And this has been another episode of HLTV Confirmed. We'll be back again tomorrow before the grand final to have another one of these chit-chats. See you tomorrow.
Add some fun to your space with Xtrfy, designed in Sweden with focus on quality products built on experience. You're looking at Project 4, their 4th generation of products with super cool colorways to stand out, with matching sets to satisfy with a solid B4 bungee, lightweight ergonomic M4 mouse, the K4 keyboard is fantastic, all of which are performance focused, and finish it off with colorful GP4 mouse mats that are bold in design and smooth on the surface. The retro theme in particular has got the feels. Complete your setup with Xtrfy. No regrets, guaranteed.
Finally, I found what I was looking for. Now that my search is over, it's gonna be a tough choice. But fortunately, no need to choose. When you can just have them all. Buy and sell skins on Bitskins.com.
Your bet, your game.